When dealing with a falsehood, you're faced with two options. You can accept it or you can reject it. The basis upon which we take one of these actions is a product of our critical thinking capabilities and a desire to know what is true instead of confirming our bias. A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. On Brainstorm, we choose the hard truths over the comforting lies. Reason, compassion, skepticism. This is the Brainstorm Podcast.
All right. Hey, folks. Welcome back. Today we're starting a new section of the Brainstorm Podcast called, for now, the Roundtable. I feel free to email suggestions for a name for this segment.
The Rectangle Table.
The Rectangle Table, brainstorm sessions. Who knows? We're going to kind of pick a topic, talk about it. If we go off of it, obviously not a big deal because that's kind of our thing. Remember that we're live on brainstormradio.net every second Friday, and today is March 30th, 2018. I'm Cory, and I'm still joined by Lisa.
Hello.
Angela.
Hello.
Renee.
Hi there.
And Brandon.
What's up?
With the always amazing Dave doing sound.
Still raging.
Thank you.
Still raging. The always raging Dave, sorry.
Always raging. Rage against the computer machine.
So, I guess the topic that I had in mind for this session was the idea of leaders in the atheist and skeptic community and how we should be criticizing them. Should we be criticizing them? And what kind of should we be expecting from people that are labeled as leaders? We recently had, there has been plenty of back and forth on Twitter between various, people like Thomas Smith from the Serious Inquiries Only podcast, and Seth Andrews and Matt Dillahunty. And obviously there's lots of people like to criticize Sam Harris. So
oh, do I have a mic?
Yeah, I don't think you've been cut off.
I don't know. Have you been
myself up?
But like, it seems like quite often criticism is either taken as always in bad faith, or it's taken in ways that where people get defensive. And I just wonder, like, should we be expecting our quote unquote leaders? Do we have leaders? What do you guys think?
Sam Harris is obviously our leader. We should not question him. That's my whole argument.
And now for a word from our sponsor, or Lisa's sponsor, Sam Harris.
Secret boyfriend and
Not so secret.
We've got hours and hours.
I mentioned him before.
Yeah, we have hours and hours.
Once or twice.
Couple times.
Once or twice. I find it interesting how these leaders are declared. Is it just screen time? Is it time that they have spoken, time that they have been on video, time that they've been interviewed? And we don't have a membership. We don't have,
right.
Hey, we vote this guy our leader. It's just almost by default a white guy or several that become leaders.
I think the thing is because this movement, shall we say, this relatively new one, has been pretty much born on the internet. And with this, you have your, and it's just like anything, it hits a crescendo, and then there's a point where, you know, as I was saying off air to Cory, the theme song is Kill Your Idols by Static X. There's just a point where once you get to the top of the mountaintop, everyone's starting to wanting to knock you off of it. And I think criticism is obviously a good thing. But with Twitter and all the other social media ways to do it, I think it's easy to bombard your valid criticisms get drowned out by just the cacophony of bullshit. Like, how many people on Twitter and whatever, there's not logical criticisms or relevant criticisms, just so-and-so's a shitlord, blah, 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 blah. And that din, I think, overshadows any, legitimate criticisms. And there's going to be a point where you have someone like Seth Andrews, who's been doing it for quite a while, big name. There's probably a point where, it's just going to be a fucking wall of.
I think we're seeing that. I think we're seeing that, and he's trying to rail against what he calls the outrage brigade in a big way, and I think Matt Dillahunty has come up against some criticism as well, and Matt Dillahunty seems to be just blocking people that are disagreeing with him. He's not.
Well, Matt Dillahunty, from my brief interactions with him, he's a nice enough guy, but I think his bullshit filter is non-existent. Like, he just doesn't put up with it. And it's like, no, fuck you. Done. Whereas Seth is, I think, a little bit more, he might be a little
more diplomatic type.
A little bit more
diplomatic.
Yeah, but everyone's got their limits.
Okay, you know what's good? Conversation. Right? If I don't agree with you, I don't agree, like, whether you're lowly other fellow brainstorm host, or it's whatever, some person who's got a way bigger following and is more prominent in the atheist community, it's cool not to agree with somebody. And we're atheists most generally because we believe in argument and logic and evidence. So we can say, hey, I disagree with you for this reason. I thought we said, but that's a conversation. That's not an accusation. That's not, that's not, smearing somebody. That's not shaming somebody. That's having a conversation. I think conversation is cool and should occur. And we're atheists. We don't really, we have leaders in the sense that we have people who are very prominent. We have people who, by what they've said or what they've done, have, gotten a following, and they speak to a lot of people. More people download their podcast than download our podcast. Fine. Let's call those people leaders. That's fine.
Let's call those people all the people?
Yeah. No.
I think
There's way more podcasts that have less. Anyway, but I'm just saying, that they're not above reproach. They're not Kim Jong-il. We're not North Koreans. I can criticize somebody who's quote unquote a leader. That is fine. And I can, as long as it's reasonable, as long as it's evidence-based, as long as I'm making, I'm not trying to shame them or make them, to have some sort of appeal to emotion. All it is there's no problem with criticizing people. That's great. That's what we do. Like, that's right. Awesome. Why wouldn't we?
I would argue, I like what you had to say about the conversation thing. I think that's something that I've been harping about a lot lately with all of the bullshit that we've been seeing. All the discord we've been seeing in the atheist movement. It's not really an atheist community, I don't think. I struggle with that term a lot just because of the nature of it. I think there's a lot of people that consider themselves atheists that are fucking assholes. Yeah. And they're
fucking assholes?
Maybe
depending on,
that just because they do that doesn't mean they're bad people.
If you like butt stuff,
fine.
That's okay if you like butt stuff. There's nothing wrong with butt stuff. But
Angela says it's okay to fuck assholes. Just to be clear.
Speaking figuratively, not literally.
Thank you. There's a Team America World Police reference.
Yeah, that's going through my head right now.
Right?
Yeah.
Sorry, Angela. Please continue. I knew what you meant. I'm just being a dick. I'm just being a fucking asshole.
The other thing too, right? I think oftentimes if we're disagreeing with people, the other part of the conversation aspect of it is that we resort to name calling really quickly. We resort to calling people shitlords and virtue signaling and things like that. And it's really frustrating to have a conversation with somebody that you disagree with, especially if they're calling you names, and especially if they're looking at you like you're full of shit. If there's not a mutual respect, if there's not an assurance of, I believe you are human, I believe you deserve to have space in this world, then the conversation, there's essentially no point in having the conversation unless there's that established mutual respect and mutual feeling of like, okay, you can talk, you can be at the table and you can be at the rectangle table and talk about stuff. The other thing I wanted to say is that because of the history of like the patriarchal aspect of religion and the patriarchal aspect of government, etc., we often put people on pedestals. We often, there's a, you can't criticize Seth Andrews. You can't criticize Matt Dillahunty. You can't criticize Aaron Ra or God forbid Sam Harris.
But nobody's ever criticized Sam Harris as far as I know. So I'm not really worried about it.
But we put these,
Your filter foo is strong, Lisa.
we put these men on pedestals and there's these diehard supporters of them that are like, that are coming, standing in front of the pedestal and like, fuck you, don't say anything bad. It's okay to punch Nazis. Just grab as many pussies as you want to. He can do whatever he wants, but because his standards aren't your standards, and he's above reproach because whatever. And that's an issue.
I think what's also going on, or at least what little I know of it, is it seems to be kind of a, you don't agree with me totally? Then
Yeah.
fuck you, fuck you, you're not even cool, fuck you too. But you have to fall in line exactly as I think, otherwise you are.
It's weird though, because I think there is some of that.
Yeah.
But I think it's easy to tell the difference between the guy who's just fuck you to everybody who disagrees with everything they say and the guy who's like, hey dude, that's not right. The person that you're talking to is a bigot and actually fucking does things to oppress people, or this is my opinion about the way you responded to that sexual harassment claim. I don't think you did a good job of that.
Yeah.
And I think it's an easy distinction, but a lot of people are getting lumped into these same groups. And I don't know, it seems like often we treat as a community, or rather as a movement, whatever we want to call ourselves, we end up.
Can we be a bowel movement?
We can definitely be a bowel movement.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Sorry.
I'm starting to think that's what this.
A loose to watery bowel movement.
It seems
I think this is what this movement needs.
very much like religion. Like it really
absolutely.
does. Like it's very much like, oh, you can't criticize the pastor. You can't say anything shitty about the dude who's at the pedestal.
Sometimes I think it's more along the lines of, well, you didn't say the Lord's Prayer this way. Well, then fuck you, we're starting our own church. I think that's more what it is.
Well, and I think we're losing sight of the humanity of these people. Like,
Well, that's
Maybe, yeah,
That's
maybe.
what I kind of think that's what it is. Ultimately,
in
is
both
that-
directions. Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, ultimately, that's
Absolutely.
the thing is that there, like he said, I mean, Seth Andrews has how many followers,
Yeah.
or Matt Dillahunty
he
has how
can
many
14,000
followers?
afford
or
to
some
not
dumb
have a
things.
job outside of what he's currently doing.
Yeah,
I'd say
they-
that's being successful.
Yeah.
But we don't also see their feeds, like. Matt Dillahunty blocked me, screen capture, your Seth Andrews blocked me, but we're not seeing the streams and streams and streams and streams of.
Well, and they get messages that we don't see, and sometimes we'll get screenshots of that, but not always. But that was the one thing that I was thinking this week as well, was about how we live in this online world. And it's really hard to maintain that humanity online. It's really hard to have that collegial kind of attitude when we're commenting on a CBC article about the Colton Bougie case, or we're commenting on how Justin Trudeau went a little overboard on his trip to India. Like, it's really hard to we're unable to, like, it's so easy to throw insults and barbs, and we're not thinking about, oh, I have to actually sit beside this person and share a meal later, or
Right.
it's just so easy to throw that stuff out there, and it feels sometimes like social media is, I just killed an ant.
We got ants in the studio.
You want ants?
That's how we got it.
A-N-T, not A-U-N-T.
Exactly.
She killed my aunt.
Sorry, Dave, I killed your aunt. But
Kill them all.
okay. With
Now
fire?
I'm itchy, okay? Like,
Yeah, I've been itchy since I saw the other one.
At
But
least it's not a tick.
fucking hate ticks.
fucking hate ticks too. But I just wanted to finish my point. I just was saying that the online world, I think, has ruined us for caring about people.
I mean, there's been actual like academic studies that have looked at how people treat other people online. And yeah, people are way more willing to go way farther when people are sort of dehumanized to the point that they are when it's just a bunch of characters on Twitter, right?
Absolutely.
But so I think it is very important that, I don't know, and it's totally cool to criticize people, but don't say anything that you wouldn't say to them in in a face-to-face context, and I would say it in that way. I don't agree with what you said, but this thing that you said, I don't think is true, or I don't think is correct for this, that,
or a shitbag.
Yeah. Well, and
if you're willing to say it in person, that's one. I mean,
and the way that we
grow, to shut down a conversation, right?
Yeah.
And the way that we grow is lovingly being challenged, lovingly having our opinions challenged.
Angela, you can lovingly challenge me anytime.
I'm going to take you up on that. Trent said he was going to start listening to the podcast. So I don't know. But
Maybe because he keeps hearing about the voice thing and just...
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
He's like, my wife has a sexy voice. I didn't know that.
I had no idea. We started dating and we talked on the phone for like 3 hours a night. I never knew she had a sexy voice at all.
So, what is...
Well, she does, Trent. She does.
What was my point?
It was something about ants.
Something about ants.
And how your husband doesn't appreciate you.
Well, it's gone now.
No, it's not. I found it.
Good. Okay.
I was an opinionated teenager and I said stuff and it was hurtful when people were like jerks to me about stuff. And we're like, oh, you're an idiot. You're a big fat nerd or whatever. But if somebody was like patiently took the time to ask me questions or to challenge what I believed, that had way more of an impact on me than somebody just like, fuck you, you're an idiot. Why would you think that? Like, it's such a dick thing to do that. And I think that it makes people feel small and then it makes them continue to confirm their biases. If they're just going to be belittled for having an opinion on things. Yeah. It's not productive to go on Facebook and be like, you're fucking wrong. You're a shitlord. You're this or that. You're a part of the outrage brigade because you're just preventing actual progress from happening.
If you have to go to the point of calling somebody a name, your argument sucks.
Absolutely.
Or they've denied reality to the point where you cannot fucking argue with them anymore.
Yeah.
I was talking at supper about being in the Monster Island. And I'm sure Aaron
I'm on the island.
I'm sure Aaron won't mind us mentioning the island on the podcast.
Aaron Rabbi's personal island on Facebook.
Yeah. It's the island where conservatives and libtards, right, where the right and left clash. Is kind of
it basically is. So you'll get like some left memes. I feel like I see more of the right wing memes.
That's because there's way more of the right wing.
I think they're just more vocal, but I like it because it feel like it gives me a pulse on the American conservatives that I otherwise wouldn't have. I'm just like, oh, interesting. They think really? They actually think that teachers should have guns in school. Like, really? It's not like just a joke. Like, it's actually a thing. Okay, good to know. Huh. And occasionally I get good memes like the one about the Eagles and Mordor, and that was a good one, right?
That was a good one. Yeah. Yes, that was a good one.
Where they laid out the why it didn't actually happen.
Well, they're just like, yeah, why does everyone keep complaining that the Eagles should have just taken the hobbits to Mordor? And he's like, you couldn't take them to Mordor because they're not a friggin' hobbit whatever. Anyway, it's hilarious.
Not a Hobbit
But-
delivery system.
Yeah, exactly.
Back to what I was
Like
saying.
Sauron
though.
would have seen them and sent his little. Sorry, what?
The island is a good example of this, where you can argue till you are literally blue in the face, and they're just going to say, you're just believing left-wing idiot propaganda. And so
you try
go,
to argue with them?
Oh, you are a fucking asshole. That's just what you are.
Yeah.
So you have to, in order to have
And
a
they look at you and go, yes, yes, I am.
Yes, and they're proud of it. That's
but
right. That's
in
the thing.
order to have a productive conversation, it takes two people to come at it
Well,
from a
that's-
sense of
Genuine.
Everybody has to be participating in good faith, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those are the words I was looking for. Put Cory's
And
words in my.
Those are all lovely sentiments, but we are talking about online
We're talking
here.
about the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
You have all the
we gotta
access.
make the internet great again, okay, people? Like,
You have all the you have all the information possible
do you
to
remember the
access.
first time you got into a shit show debate? Like, whatever your friend, from some, lefty, you know them from
Actually,
university,
I do
got into a
remember.
fight with your aunt who's like for the death penalty on Facebook. This was, back in 2005, and you're just like, oh shit, this shit seems to blow up easily. You're all surprised by that. We need to return to that shit.
Actually, I can get a screen cap of it where I said that the internet is not an excuse for you to behave like assholes.
Is that right?
There you go.
I seem to recall arguing with Mike about climate change, like Mike Swistek, because I didn't believe in climate change at the time.
Aha. You were the one.
I was the one. And after that argument, I decided I was going to do some research and prove him wrong.
Boy, was your
And
face red.
at the end of that research, I had to type up a note going, yeah, I don't like being wrong, but
But see, you came at it
Sounds wrong.
from a point of view of good faith, and you were able to change your mind based on actual evidence, which is pretty rare, honestly. I mean,
That's
be like
And
Cory.
that's why, like,
yeah.
Cory
That's
argued
the only
against
time
climate
you'll ever
change.
hear that. So
Cory argued against climate change. Cory did his research. Cory changed his mind, said, "Yeah, I was wrong. Be more like Cory." Make a meme. We can make a meme.
Is it really
Let's make a meme.
is that really good faith though? It's like, no, fuck you. I'm going to find this stuff
Yeah,
and I'm going to prove
it's-
you fucking wrong. And damn it.
It is good faith. It is.
It is,
I'm
kind
going to
of.
find evidence against your argument, and I'm going to show that I'm. Oh shit, you're right. That is science. That is how
That
that
is how
fucking
that works.
works.
well, and that's the
it.
other thing too. We
With a
can't
little
have
less swearing.
We can't have an ego
Oh,
about
sorry. Sometimes it's fair.
whether we're wrong. Like, I think the allegations of sexual misconduct are evidence of that.
yeah.
There's these people that are so attached to, no, what I did was not inappropriate. It was consensual. And people are just clinging to the idea that they were in the right. They weren't in the wrong. They didn't do something. And it doesn't improve matters whatsoever. If you're just like,
well, things like that though, that's hard. You can't just look up the International Committee on
Right.
Climate Change and go and, get an evidence-based, peer-reviewed
I mean, that was-
thought on that, right? That's just like, no, the woman said she was uncomfortable with you in the hotel room. And you're like, no, that she totally couldn't have been. And you're like, no, but yes, she was.
I mean,
She's like, no,
I think
I'm
that.
not.
I mean, that whole situation and it goes back to this Hess Andrews thing and Steve Shrives and whatever
Right.
is because that's where I think the outrage brigade is. I mean, yeah, it's kind of an insult, but in a weird way, it's appropriate because, okay, from like watching that Christina Rad story about Lawrence Krauss.
yes.
Okay, Lawrence Krauss is a dick. I mean, but
I've heard him interviewed. I knew it was true as soon as I heard it because I was like, oh yeah, I've heard him interviewed. I know what he's like. Yes, it's definitely true.
Yeah, like I mean, I've listened to one of his books. He's kind of intelligent, but maybe he's an arrogant asshole.
Oh no, I could tell that right from every interview. I don't. So as a woman,
But
I'm just
anyway,
like, oh yeah,
but,
I knew.
But that's
Yeah.
kind of that's kind of beside the point. I mean, the thing is
I knew.
Seth Andrews, Matt Dillahunty, Sam Harris, because I listened to his response to it. They've all dealt with Lawrence Krauss. They've done tours and speaking and whatever with him. And maybe they didn't see that behavior, or it's just a case of we all have that friend where we go, yeah, we hang out with him. but he's kind of a dick.
No, that's not what Sam Harris said. He said, I've never seen any of this before. I'm
that's true.
But I've heard you interview him, and I know by the only interaction I've ever had with Lawrence Krauss is Sam Harris interviewing him. I'm like, I can tell from your interviews with him that he would have done this. So maybe it's because you're a man that you didn't pick up on this, but I knew straight up that from your interviews with him that, that he did this. No question.
Yeah, and that may be true. I'm just saying because
Mr. Harris has some blind spots.
Because maybe it's a blind spot. Maybe it's because, those kind of things. Steve Shrives is calling them all out because they're not standing up and down and pounding on the tables like he is. And that's why he's calling them out. And I'm like going, well, do they have to?
Well, but that's an interesting question. He
said that he believes that Krauss probably did something wrong, and that that's true. He's distancing himself from it. He wouldn't do a public appearance with them. I mean, he's not really a pounding on the table kind of guy.
No,
he's
isn't.
He's very measured and blah blah blah. But he's I probably believe him, and right now I think he needs to make a better statement than total denial. Which is what he said.
But
he didn't pound on tables.
No, he isn't. But that's the thing is, Shrives is calling them out because they're not pounding on the tables like he is.
But that's the thing. Like, in some cases, it's like they wait and they wait and they wait. They see these accusations from a BuzzFeed article, and then they see the Christina Rad video, and then they still have to hear like 2 or 3 friends tell them that this is a thing.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is where Steve Shrives is coming across being like, you had all this evidence. Why didn't you listen to this other stuff? I mean, maybe the way he words it is not great either. Like,
no, that's kind of what I mean. Is like when I see it, I see him as how dare you guys not be, jumping up and down on the table and calling him out and like I am.
Can I present a bit of a parallel?
No.
Okay. Right now, going through the parliament there's a little bit of a kerfuffle about the India fiasco.
Okay.
With the invite, how the leader of the Conservatives is basically going into question period every day asking, it's like, what do you know, repeatedly, sort of thing. She doesn't ask anyone else but Justin Trudeau.
Okay.
Doesn't ask any other cabinet members, doesn't ask. It's just essentially directed at the one person who would be responsible. Now, on our side, we have the questions being posed as, why didn't you do anything about this? And this is where I think the difference between the House of Parliament being essentially a group of leaders and these prominent atheists not being a group of leaders. It's not really something they have to do. Like they're vocal, but they don't have any responsibility to the other ones, any points of discipline.
I think also that one of the reasons that they don't comment or don't necessarily feel the need to comment. I think there are exceptions, but I think that one of the reasons that they maybe don't need to comment further than what they've already commented is because they come from a place of privilege and they don't have any direct contact. Their personal friends and family weren't impacted by this, and they don't have to really say anything. It doesn't affect their day to day. If anything, it would probably hurt their bottom line if they came out negatively against Lawrence Krauss specifically, or anyone else who is accused of being a shithead.
Right. Is it about? Is it to some extent like hedging your bets? You don't say anything, and maybe you won't lose any listeners either way. Or do you?
I don't even know if it's about listeners. It might just be about, contracts with speaking tours. There's other elements. I mean, it's not forgiving any of it. Like, a lot of it could be just settled with, okay, if Lawrence Krauss is a douche, then you go, being a douche.
Well, and
knock it off.
Him speak for himself, and not necessarily having a position, but just be like, this is crazy. And just keep going on with your life because you got shit to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are some people that have been outspoken that are like, this is the hill I'm going to die on. This is the thing.
That's what I think is happening, especially with the Steve Shrives thing, is that it's becoming the hill he's going to die on. Yeah. And he's taken aim at, well, some of the bigger names in the quote-unquote atheist community.
Go ahead.
I don't have an extensive experience. I've seen a couple of Steve Shiv's videos, and I think he's articulate, and I appreciate his perspective.
I find him quite
on things.
entertaining. I actually kind of like
I'm
him.
a big fan,
Yeah.
actually, but I mean, that doesn't mean I have to agree with everything he says.
I think this is going a little too far.
And that's the other thing too. Like how far, like how cohesive do we have to be as a movement, community, what have you? Like, don't have to agree on everything?
But do these cats need to be in a herd in order to make progress?
Yes.
I don't think. But who was it
Which is
that said
unfortunate.
atheism doesn't need activism? It's not atheism that needs activism. It's secular humanism.
That's true.
You need to be a secular activist or a humanist activist or a secular humanist activist. There's atheists. It's
Yeah, because
I don't think
maintaining
that's-
the separation of church and state is secularism, right? Like that's not
Exactly.
atheism per
And
se.
I think that's a more important thing to be passionate about. There's only so much passion you can have about a lack of belief in God, right? There's way more important issues to have at the forefront than just not believing in God.
Right. Yeah, or as like some podcasters have said, okay, we've dealt with the easiest question there is. Now what do we do?
Yeah. Well, and you're kind of pigeonholing yourself if you're just like, well, we just talk about atheism. Well, it's got a limitation there.
It kind of reminds me of that chapter in the God Delusion where Dawkins, like I think it's like chapter 2 or 3. Like it's early in the book, and he's like, okay, these are the arguments. Here's me refuting each of the whatever. Here's 8 different arguments for the existence of God, and here's me refuting each of them one by one. And there's something to the effect of, I can't believe I have to do this. This is sort of absurd because these arguments are terrible, but okay, fine, let's go. And he goes through, like Pascal's wager and blah, blah, blah. And he goes through them all, but it's funny because it's like, he's like, you can feel his eyes rolling as you begin the chapter. Like,
So in that sense, like what does it even mean to have leaders in a movement like this?
Well, in a lot of ways, we don't. We have prominent voices, but we don't have leaders.
We don't have.
That's not entirely true.
With the
People like
exception of
David
Cory.
Silverman.
You think David Silverman is a leader?
I think he's more like a leader than Harris, Dawkins, or Hitchens was.
he's the head of an organization.
Yeah, he's the head of an organization. Whereas those other guys, I guess, are the...
They're just outspoken authors and
Yeah, they're not just, I mean, a lot of
They're
people are
they're the
outspoken. We're
celebra-
outspoken. They just have a big audience.
right.
If anything, they're
The only
Way to rub it in.
they're atheist celebrities, if
the
you
only
will.
thing,
Bigger audience.
the only
Bigger.
difference between me and
Ours is
Harris
still
is several
big.
zeros.
It doesn't make it better.
It's how you use your podcast.
We've got a
good
very
size.
big, it's totally, average to above average size audience.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Why do we need like atheist leaders?
Wait, I don't think we do.
That's something that actually Lachlan brought up in the in the Discord chat.
What are we laughing about?
Lachlan, I have a story for you. Message me later.
We really, really love you. It's okay.
Yeah, that's
We're laughing with you.
Are you still laughing at Cory?
yes.
Yeah.
Everybody's
Kind
still
of.
laughing at Cory.
Yes, we're laughing at Cory. That's actually true.
But that's what he was saying in the Discord chat, where people could go to the Facebook page and join the Discord
I don't have a
chat
tablet.
and discuss the subject in the chat room. It's live and all that good stuff. But anyway,
That's cool.
yeah. So
Maybe we should put that up on the big screen.
yeah, that would actually be cool.
Yeah, we could do that at the break for sure.
Because that way the rest of us can read it, Cory.
Right. And then I wouldn't have to have it on my phone.
Yep.
But that's what he's saying, like about why do we even have leaders? Really?
Because, yes, we can all sit and say, why do we have to have leaders? But let's face facts.
Popular people become leaders.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just the way
Whether we point them or not.
They have influence.
But the difference is, though, like with an atheist movement, is there's no dogma or creed or like there's no complete organized philosophy behind everybody.
No matter what it is, we always gravitate.
Well, of course we have some dogma.
We always do, but do we have to? That's the question.
I don't think we do. I don't think we have to, but like I was saying previously, I don't think atheism needs activism.
Well, yeah, exactly, right?
I think the separation of church and state, one school system, humanism, that needs activism.
What do you think of the idea that being anti-religion needs activism? Is that a thing?
No.
To like actively work towards the elimination thereof?
Or like to at least point out the problems that it sometimes presents. Like religious, like a lot of shows, they talk about religious people who are actively fighting against this thing, or they're actively fighting against that thing, or they're promoting, they're taking advantage of people and taking their money, things like that.
I feel that's a fight better fought on the personal level. I don't think that has a huge future as a group, because it just sounds like trolling out a field of negativity rather than talking to a person.
I think we need to point out corruption where it exists. We need to, if somebody's, being duped out of their money or being treated badly, or abuse is being
normalized
or justified in a certain way, that I think needs to be addressed. But
that's covered in a lot of other areas other than just atheism.
Exactly. No. But also like the abolition of religion, I don't think that I know there are people that are proponents of that, but I don't personally, I don't believe that is a valuable expenditure of energy.
See, I would say that I'm for the abolition of religion. But I think that the way to achieve that is by trying to convince people that's absurd, or that doesn't make sense. So that's what I feel like this podcast is about. That's what I feel like all the the big books from New Atheism that's why they got their hold, because people are like, yeah, what the fuck, like, I don't know, like, or et cetera. Like, I think that's good. But so in that sense of activism, I agree.
Yeah, I think it's.
But I would never force anyone to not believe. That doesn't make any sense. Like, I believe it's what you think. So if
stop believing in a God, stop believing in a God.
But in the same way, a religious person,
these probes in your brain.
A religious person couldn't come up to me and be like, "Start believing, just start," because you have to. And you can make all the arguments. Oh, it's good for you going to heaven, and then blah blah blah. You get all these benefits. I'm like, doesn't matter if I still don't believe it, right? Like it's like exactly. I assume your God probably wants me to actually believe it, not just hedge my bets.
I think that actually takes us in kind of a different direction with the conversation, is like the idea that what is it to believe or not believe? Like, so if I'm convinced there's a God, you can't force me to be not convinced that there's a God.
But I can make a rational argument to me and hopefully try to convince you.
And hopefully.
That's it. That's my only means.
Yep.
But because of that, like, yeah, there's rational arguments, but then there's also, it comes back to our conversations. I mean, I was never convinced that something did or did not exist, or I was wrong about something by somebody saying, well, duh, this is the way this is. Because psychologically we automatically cling to our current beliefs. If somebody counters what we believe with the possibility that it might be wrong. It's just psychologically we cling to our beliefs even more.
Fucking neurotypicals.
Right?
So maybe to some extent there is value in just having these conversations, right? Maybe there is some value to the idea of quote unquote atheist activism, because you can spend your time as an activist trying to convince people of perspectives that aren't their own.
Well, and asking questions and I think empowering people to think critically, empowering people to doubt and to ask questions and giving them the freedom to push the issue. Like that.
In a weird way, that's kind of where your leaders come from, is they inspire that kind of thought.
Right.
I think that's a good point.
But that being said, they can't and shouldn't be unquestioned. You can't, you should be able to question them. Like if they inspired you, fine. If they say something you don't agree with, you kind of go, I don't agree with you. You should be able to do that. Like, I mean, they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you get a new dogma.
Well, yeah. I mean,
this is very much in line with the book Sapiens that I love so much. But like a leader is only somebody that we all agree is somebody we should listen to. That's all they are. It doesn't matter if they're the prime minister or, the head of a country, or they're a prominent podcaster who has a prominent audience, a big audience. I mean, it's just somebody we've all agreed to listen to, whether it, be an official thing or not. Like, we're just a bunch of apes who are listening to other apes, and we, certain apes are more dominant than other apes. And
unless one of them got a sword handed to them out of the lake.
And well, good, but there's that's coercion, right? But
not if the sword's handed to them. They took the sword.
Okay, but if somebody is leading with the sword, right? I mean, coercing people as a leader. But it's still.
Train track.
Even with coercion, it's most of coercion is not actual physical force, but it's all in our heads, right? Like, I mean, most people who were killed in Nazi concentration camps walked willingly into the gas chamber. Like, they weren't physically forced in because, psychologically they were brought down. Some people, of course, were physical, but it's all in our heads, right? Like, I'm just saying leaders are all in our heads.
A lot of that was fear out of what might happen if I didn't.
But fear is in your head. That's what I'm saying. So leaders are any leader we ever have is all just in our head. So anybody that we look to and if we're discussing them here on this podcast, kind of implies that they're in our head, right? Like,
yeah.
Matt Dillahunty says, don't have heroes. Lots of people are like, oh, Matt Dillahunty, you're my hero. I specifically recall one particular thread where somebody said that, and he responded saying, don't have heroes. And I think they'll
just disappoint you. Exactly. Fucking David Suzuki, go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself.
That came out of somewhere.
But also,
couldn't agree more.
Like, there are people that exist who have like really amazingly intelligent things to say, and they're inspiring us to think differently about life and think critically and ask difficult questions. But there was an allegation of rape in their past. I mean, like, we're all flawed, and we're all.
Yeah, it depends on the degree.
We all
of the
have accusations
thing.
of rapes in our past.
We do.
Well, my life's going to take
maybe
an awful
not
turn.
everybody.
My life's going to take an awful turn when Patrick Stewart comes out as having done something awful.
Okay, don't even know.
You're just a bad person now.
Yeah.
Please don't even say that, okay? He's on my fridge. I have a negative of him on my fridge looking down on me.
Patrick Stewart
he is my...
He's already been through his tough shit. So
he rescues pit bulls, okay? But please don't.
But that's just
I'm not saying I'm going to make him do anything.
Well, and having that, like,
why would you even say that?
Making those ultimatums is really, like, careful with those ultimatums, because I don't know, shit gets weird pretty quick.
Yeah,
and
I think that's just it. Is the leaders, to use that term, that's fine, but keep in mind that they're people.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's just it. Is so who knows? There's always the public face and there's the private face, and
Okay, but seriously though, like Lawrence Krauss, sexual harassment. I'm like, yeah. Gian Ghomeshi, sexual. Yeah, you're Patrick Stewart. What? No. Like, it just doesn't seem right. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, it all comes together. Oh, no, I'd be like, no, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
But you're arguing with feelings. Where's your empirical fucking evidence?
I was arguing with it before. Same thing with Lawrence Krauss. I'm just like, oh yeah, that guy totally did it. Yeah. Like, I could just tell from how he is. But Patrick Stewart, I could not tell from how he is. And no, you're just wrong. And I would have been surprised if that was the case. Like, actually surprised.
But that right there is kind of what some of the people are saying from their side.
That is actually true. That is what some people are saying about Lawrence Krauss, or like
who are these? They're not women
No,
because
they are
any
not
woman
women.
I've actually had people on my Facebook. I know a lot of scientists who've met him, and the women were like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah,
all
actually,
of them, fucking all of them, because you just like. So that's why, like, Sam Harris, like, well, I never detected any sexual. He's not interested in 53-year-old men.
Dude.
Okay, like this is not a thing. But like, I can tell. I can just. I'm sorry.
All that's fair. I mean, that's fair. But
you know, I can tell because I'm an ape, the same species as this guy, and we speak the same like sociological language where I'm just like, I pick up on your cues and I get it. I sense the same danger signals from you that I've sensed from other males who've acted that same way. I know. That's why.
Yeah, there you go.
That's my empirical evidence. I'm just saying that's how I picked up on it.
Possible. Lawrence
There's gaydar, and so this is like sexual harassment dar.
Yes.
I mean, Christina Rad has said
Sorry,
that.
I shouldn't have done that when you took a sip of enchilada.
I think you may want Shadar.
Sexual harassment, dar. Okay.
Well, I don't know. Christina Rad, like,
dar. I don't know.
Her story was more like she didn't defend Lawrence Krauss, but she kind of said, you know what?
This is a thing that a creep does.
Yeah. Well, the way she put it is like, he's not a sexual predator. He's a sexual opportunist.
Never said, he made his own opportunities, though.
Yeah.
Different kind of.
But
I think I'll take advantage of this.
Let me finish, because this is what she said.
Sorry.
You know, is that he's just, you know, he just had no game. Like, he's just an awkward man trying to get laid and has no fucking clue to do. This is how she put it. Just
not my words, her words.
This is her words.
No,
so
actually, she did release a even more recent video.
That's the one I literally
she
watched
said
today.
like, I don't think people calling him a predator are using the right word, and I kind of disagree with her because there's stories that have come out where he sounded very predatory.
And like, let me get this straight. I'm not defending him. I have no idea. As far as I know, he's a total fucking D-bag. I have no idea. But I'm just, my criticism of it is, like I was saying earlier, is like Steve Shrives jumping up and down on a table because Seth Andrews isn't also jumping up and down on a table. You know, like, that's the problem when, yes, Christina Rad has come out and said that, you know, Lawrence Krauss just did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, when it's like, if she's not jumping up and down on a fucking table, you know.
What's the big deal?
Well, it's not that what's the big deal. To me, I feel like I said, I kind of like Steve Shrives, but I feel like he's doing more like, there's a problem. There's a damsel in distress. Let me get on my armor. You know, like, that's kind of the vibe I got off. And I might be totally wrong. Like, that it's his own, you know, personal kind of thing that, you know, like you said, I could easily be wrong. It was just, that's the vibe I got off of it. I'm not defending Lawrence Krauss in the fucking slightest. I have no idea he could be an absolute asshole. I don't know.
Right.
I'm just,
I think at this point it's well established that he is.
Okay, so I just want to say explicitly, it is not opportunism to create a situation where somebody who you have authority over gets unduly influenced to come to a hotel room with you where you're hoping to have sex with them. And you're not planning to rape them, but that's not creating an opportunity. That's abusing a power you have over somebody, just to be clear, which is what he's accused of.
Well, and Christina Rad came from a place of, like, it's not an experience that deeply affected her in a negative way. Yeah. It happened. She was like, what the fuck? She told a couple people and then she forgot about it until the most recent allegations came out. And she was just adding her story to say, he's just a gross guy.
He's a dick.
And
yeah.
I think this might be good for another roundtable later. Yeah. But I'm of the opinion that if somebody feels like you've harassed them, then you have, and that's kind of where that has to be.
Absolutely. No,
well,
if they go, hey, buddy, fuck off.
Right. So,
end of story. You know,
and I totally can understand that he is in the category of male where you say, hey buddy, fuck off, and he does, but it's the creepiness leading to that.
No,
like, so he's not a Bill Cosby.
No,
right.
No, not by any stretch.
But he's not nothing.
Yeah.
But it's still creepy to create that situation, and it's not cool.
I don't understand where he thinks that that's the cool move. But once again,
I think it's because he's really full of himself. I think it's because he thinks that he's entitled to behave like that.
Definitely.
It reminds me actually of a story from back when we were, I don't know, maybe late teens or something. And there was a story about a guy that kind of circled through a few of the friends that we had. The guy, he would just go up to any woman on the street and say, "You want to fuck?"
Sessions?
Like every woman he saw, he would do that too. It's just a story.
Okay.
And every once in a while, it would work. And so he felt that that was a tactic that he could use in general in life.
Because it worked sometimes.
So in a way, like Lawrence Krauss's thing may have worked on occasion.
Yeah.
But your
so it reinforced that behavior.
Yes.
Your apocryphal story is actually more conducive to consent than Krauss's.
Yes, though that's true.
Despite sounding lewd,
if he's just going up to random people that he doesn't have any power over, to make or break their career, blah blah blah. I mean, like it's kind of yucky, but it's not as bad as doing this to some.
I mean, the thing is each story has its own yin and yang and minutia, but
I think we need to value someone's story. We need to value we need to value their experience. If somebody felt wronged or offended or hurt by how someone else behaved towards them, I think that's an important aspect of things.
Yes.
And
the allegations should
and
be
I'm not saying that. You're not saying that.
I guess where my criticism isn't, like once again, fuck Lawrence Krauss if he's doing this shit. It's not cool.
Yeah.
I guess to me it feels like with say what Steve Shrives is doing, like this is because really this is all I know what I've seen, because I'm not that deep into the atheist community stuff, is to me it seems like Shrives is kind of making his bones by attacking Seth Andrews and Matt Delahunty for not armoring up like he is.
Yeah.
And meanwhile it's like like why are you having to defend like these women? These women should be able to come out on their own.
Well, and that's,
I think that there's
that's
something,
another thing too.
Oh, go ahead.
Are we dividing our loyalties too much? Like, is Steve Shives wasting his YouTube channel breadth, and like, is he wasting his effort by publicly calling out somebody else who's prominent in the community by just saying like, I can't fucking believe you're just not as pissed off about this as I am? Like, is there a better way? Should he let the women speak? Should he let the women say, you know what? Listen to this.
Well,
listen to this.
It depends. I think that in a lot of ways, like the women who speak up open themselves up to a lot of really nasty shit, right? And in a lot of ways, I mean, whether you agree with his tactic or not, Steve Shives has put himself in front of some of that criticism.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and, that's quite possible. That's quite possible argument too. Like, I mean, it's just, like I said, it's just something that, I don't know, maybe I have it all wrong, and that's just something that kind of was like.
So I think what he's missing is I think it's more powerful to just, and for a lot of people to just be like, yeah, I believe you. Like, I think that's actually more powerful than having like a few prominent people being like, nah, bang the drums. I think it's better just to have like that general, which is just have everyone be like, yep. Yeah, okay, I believe you. And I think that's what many of these people he's criticizing have done, is to say that, yeah, I believe them, and yep. So, which is not, I don't want to take up your, maybe not everyone can and wants to take up everyone else's fight, but it's that general culture of the knee jerk of, I tend to believe, I want to believe these people, rather than the knee jerk, say 20 years ago or even 5 years ago, which is, probably, she, why is she lying?
She's a lying whore.
She just wants, attention or whatever, so I think the change to have a lot of people generally culturally and decide that, I believe these women is good. And I think that's where you want to get.
I think that's a good place to finish the roundtable.
Sounds good.
Time for another short break.
Woohoo!
For live listeners and patrons, you can join us again in a few minutes, and we'll be back. For regular feed subscribers, this is where we'll end the Brainstorm Roundtable. Please email me with suggestions for a new name. I don't like that at all.
Well, and the table we're sitting at right now is a rectangle. So you can't see it, but
slightly round.
Brainstorm fold-out table.
Yeah.
Roundabout.
Make sure to check out the Shift to Reason Radio next week when we break down some news stories from the world of pseudoscience, religion, and politics. Remember to give us a rating, a thumbs up, or a fave on your podcatcher of choice. Join our Facebook group, like our page, follow us on Twitter, share the show, and spread the word. Or you can support us on Patreon. For everything else, you can check out the show notes at thebrainstormpodcast.com and our website, brainstormblog.net. Thank you to our financial supporters, Zach, the Utah Outcasts, Bassett, Will, Aaron, Daryl, Destin Sucks, Lachlan, Destin doesn't suck that much, Magnus, Michael, Positively Skeptical, Rob, and Stephanie. If you want to join them and help the show grow, then you can do that at patreon.com/brainstormpodcast. You can also support our conference by going to the GoFundMe, gofundme.com/shift-2-reason-conference-2018. Or you can go and buy stuff at tpublic.com/stores/brainstorm-podcast-gear. I know that's a lot of slashes and dashes. The links will be in the show notes.
Yes.
You can join us every second week when we broadcast live on brainstormradio.net. Our next show is on April 13th, and our guest will be Kevin Francis from the Left at the Valley podcast. Thank you, Dave, for doing our intro music. Thanks.
You're welcome.
To Aaron Rabbi from the Embrace the Void podcast for doing the intro voiceover. You can find his stuff at voidpod.com. Thanks to Alex Capper-Murdoch for doing the voiceover for our ads, and thanks to Jason Camo for our outro music. You can find his stuff over at aloststateofmind.com. All music played is either with permission or under the SOCAN license to play. For more information on SOCAN, you can check out the music license info page on our website, brainstormblog.net. Remember to give us a rating, a thumbs up, or a fave on your podcatcher of choice. Join our Facebook group, like our page, follow us on Twitter, share the show, and spread the word. Thanks for listening, and remember, the truth matters.
This is an opinion-based podcast. Each person on the podcast is responsible for their own opinions, and those opinions don't necessarily reflect the views of the rest of the panel. Any guests or anyone associated with the people on the podcast, such as spouses, partners, children, other family members, friends, or employers. No one person speaks for the podcast with the possible exception of Cory, and he doesn't speak for anyone else on the show. The Brainstorm podcast does not represent the views of our sponsors.
We just wanted to say thanks to everyone who listens to us, shares the show, gives us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or supports us through Patreon and Gumroad. We don't have a lot of interactions with our listeners, but what we have had proves that we attract some of the best people around. Smart, kind, and cool. An audience truly worthy of the titles hardcore and woo-free. Thanks for helping us make the world a smarter place.